if we could retake your seats, please. Could I just ask, Lynette, you just had some additional advice for us in terms of the number of car parks. It was an error in the advice.
There was an error in my my recollection of the numbers. So originally, when we went out to consultation, it was 41% loss along the road, as Councillor Kewen asked. So that was, and then we've got that has come down to 40% loss, and of that, about 15 to 20% is because of changes at intersections and pedestrian crossings.
Yeah.
So my apologies for that.
No, that's fine. All right. Okay. Just in terms of moving on to the debate, I have a notice of a foreshadowed motion. I'm just getting some additional advice on it. And if I have to rule on it, I can rule on it closer to the time. But it's that a foreshadowed motion from Councillor Kewen that the council refers the design back to a hearings panel for further consideration of the retention of the existing 4 lanes on Harewood Road, and request a staff report on the installation of the traffic lights at Harewood, Breens, Gardeners Road. So that's a foreshadowed one. So we'll move on to the debate, and I'll just kick this off. So the major cycleway program of 13 major cycleway routes has been part of our city's commitment to generating the significant modal shift to cycling that we require as a city for a number of years. It was originally signalled in the 2012 transport plan, the Christchurch transport plan, and also signalled in the report of the work that the City Council did in preparation for the 3-year plan that they did in 2013. So this was a commitment that this council entered into, prior to many of the councillors that sit round the table, and certainly prior to myself becoming the mayor. So, and the reason that the council made this commitment was that in a post-earthquake environment, it actually gave the city an opportunity to look strategically about its future, and could we future-proof the city in terms of some of the decisions that we were going to be making. There was a significant amount of focus at the time on the government's blueprint for the central city development, but the city itself took responsibility for really actioning an approach to modal shift that would take us into the 21st century. We needed to create a viable transport option, which included these people that were concerned about safety. And people my age remember when cycling was the norm. We all cycled to school. People at university, the James Height building, underneath that was the cycle park. It was huge. It was packed with cycles all the time. There were very few student car parks. Most car parks were for staff. And even then, a lot of the staff cycled to university. So it was safe to cycle to and from school for children, for older people. People were quite comfortable in that environment. But then we had this open access to second-hand cars that flooded the country, and all of a sudden everyone was a car owner, and everyone had the capacity to buy vehicles that could travel at significant speed and manage to crumple on contact. So there was a huge difference in the environment. It isn't safe for everyone today, and this is about all of the users. This is about pedestrians, it's about cyclists, and it is about people who drive cars as well, because it is about making the whole environment safe for everyone, safer for everyone. It's never possible to completely protect against certain things. It is hard to retrofit separated cycleways into existing streets than it is to embed them in brand new, right from the outset. And we just look at the motorway out to the north and the wonderful cycleway that's been built in there alongside it. It's a fantastic environment for everyone. But our major cycleway routes are being retrofitted, and the best for me remain the incomplete northern line alongside the corridor. That was a convenient walkway for me when I was a kid, and then of course the unicycle, absolutely fantastic, and its opening saw expectations being exceeded straight away. This is the missing link in a metropolitan project that this council's been committed to since 2013. The hearings panel considered a huge amount of information and material, and I do want to again acknowledge both members of the panel and the staff for the incredible amount of work that they have done, and I'll wrap it up at the end by acknowledging the incredible amount of work that has continued to occur with an ongoing with the community. Thank you. My time is up. So, Pauline.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to speak for long on this. I think, Leanne, you've covered it brilliantly, and including with your introduction as well. But look, we know that we're in a climate emergency and there's nothing more telling than what's been happening this week. And cycleways are part of our response to our human accelerated climate change impacts, and they provide mode choice and zero emissions, such as cycling safely. But retrofitting cycleways is the challenging part, but it's the right thing to do. We need to encourage mode choice, reduce emissions, and provide cyclists with equitable travel choice in view of safety, and enable young children to cycle, and then they'll continue to cycle. And look, staff have obviously laboured long and hard over this. You've put in untold hours with the community, and look, it really needs recognition of what you've done. The level of community engagement has been incredible. No time has been spared to speak with people, I can tell that, and I know what sort of engagement that you run. And the 70 changes you've made is in response to that. Look, to send this back will add time, and time equals huge cost increases. Approve it today, get people pedalling safely. The 13 NCRs are just one project. We're getting there. This will be one more piece, and then we'll begin the connections. Approve this today. Let's just get on with it. Cycleways are climate action.
Thank you. Jimmy Chen.
Okay, thank you. I remember 3 years ago, Council declared our city, the city of Otautahi Christchurch, is a climate and ecological emergency city. So over the past couple of years, in particular, we reviewed the past several days in Christchurch and also in whole South Island, the severe heavy rain, so caused serious flooding. So this significant evidence that climate change is more and more serious. Also, Northern Hemisphere, we can see also drought, also quite serious. I feel the kind of location, city, even more than 40 degrees. It's evidence. But MCR, major cycle route, is one of active transport mode to encourage people to take a bike. Can biking safely, also reduce the carbon emission and take a positive action in response to the climate change. I myself, recently, I purchased a new bike, but I practiced in the Rickland Park, not yet, go on to the street. But once the South Express major cycle route done, I would like to take the bike to the street. Because why? Because we have this MCR, it means it's more safe for the bikers. Also, the hearing panel, they review and listening to all the submissions, and also they have already for amended 70 changes to the revised scheme changes. And also some individual specific issue, they will be reflected to the kind of detailed design. So it means the hearing panel already to listen to and review all the submissions and take the more kind of active action to reflect to even the scheme design or in the future the detailed design. That's very fantastic. And also particularly we review this information, we are all aware the elderly people surrounding those retirement village and also for the school kids. Actually, this is the kind of initiative from the Hellwood and the surrounding the school, to give those kids for the synchronized or biking more safe. I think it's a greater the benefit, to those people. Also, all those kind of police, fire emergency, New Zealand and St. John ambulance, they all support this one. So regarding to all these factors, I support the hearing panel the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Tim?
Yeah, thank you. It was mentioned before about, when some of us were kids, we biked to school and that was the main kind of transport. But really it isn't about us, it's about our grandchildren. And with change, sometimes there is a bit of pain, but we do have to make a change. And this, I think, is part of that. A lot of the comments I get from people in my ward with regards to the cycle lanes put in is they want now the connections for their children to be able to get to school safely. So it's not about today, it's not about tomorrow, it's about our grandchildren's generation and those generations beforehand that we've got to make a change, especially now with the intensification that's happening. And as that goes on, it's not going to make these streets safer. So I'll be in support.
Thank you. Sam McDonald.
Excuse me. Look, I'm more keen to support Aaron's foreshadowed motion, and I kind of get what Tim was saying in terms of the people in his ward saying, that actually we've got to do a few of these things, and I don't think people dispute that. But what the people have been saying in Harewood is actually overwhelmingly locally that they do not want the design that's there now. So look, I'm not convinced we're there yet. I really think that community concept should be explored a lot more. And I think, the theme that keeps coming through is, how can we actually listen to the community as opposed to sort of doing it to them? And I'm just not sure yet. I appreciate there's been a lot of work done, but I just don't think we have enough solutions to make it comfortable for the people of the Harewood ward. So I'd be more, I will support the foreshadowed motion, but after the overwhelming feedback from the local community, the local people that live in that area, I just can't in good conscience support the current design.
Sarah?
We know lots of things to be true about cycleways. We know that they are climate action. We know that they are really great for equality and that more women will bike when they have a safe cycling route. We know that they ease congestion, that they have an amazing benefit-cost ratio. We know that they make it safer for kids to bike to school. We know that there's been an enormous amount of work to try and find the safest possible solution for this particular cycleway. And when it comes to the local versus the non-local votes, the people in my local area, Tim's local area, are currently flooding. And I think that their voices when it comes to climate action are just as valid as those who might have a driveway impacted down Harewood Road. But I'm tired of putting up rational, evidence-based arguments every time we come to a cycleway decision. The heat waves across Europe and across America, the floods across the country time and time again this winter, the fires in Australia a couple of years ago, all make it crystal clear that we cannot delay acting on climate change. And what we frequently hear is people trying to delay action. People say that they don't deny climate change, but delaying action on climate change has exactly the same impact as denying that it exists at all. And what makes it worse is that if you acknowledge that climate change exists, that it is human generated, and that we can do something about it, and then you choose not to, you are personally making a decision which will impact our city in the future. You are making a decision to increase emissions. You are making a decision to increase sea level rise. You're making a decision, a deliberate choice as an individual to increase the risk of fires on our Port Hills, and that is abhorrent. I've heard some talk about people trying to think about taking funding from this to put it towards flooding. And to that I say, if your bathtub is overflowing, the first thing you should do is to turn off the tap and not start planning for a bigger drain. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Phil?
I will be supporting Aaron's foreshadow motion because I think we haven't looked outside the square far enough in the centre block. I'm more than happy with both ends. I think it will happen. It'll be great, but I don't think we've got the buy-in of all the businesses on the south side, the Bishopdale shopping centre there. I'm just reading a letter about that. So I won't be supporting the whole thing, but I will be supporting Aaron's motion. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? James?
Yeah, I too will be supporting Aaron's foreshadowed motion. Look, safe, practical and cost-effective cycleways I'm in complete favour of, but wheels to wings, however, doesn't appear to get the balance right in any of those. This looks to be a hugely expensive ideological solution that's been reverse engineered to be implemented at literally any cost. So, don't worry that as a council we haven't been able to process consents on time. Don't worry that rates are set to increase by 50% over the next 10 years. Don't worry that our level of debt will be higher than the ceiling LGFA originally set for us. Don't worry that half the city smells like faeces and that the other half is virtually underwater. Because that's all cool. A controversial $22 million gold-plated cycleway will go ahead. And I think that is what really, understandably, angers people about our council. Look, the proposed wheels to wings cycleway, in my view, is over-engineered, overpriced, and from the overwhelming community feedback that I've received, it's largely unwanted by the very people that it's going to directly affect. So I think the community's plan that they have come up with is a really good start point to come up with something that's for the community by the community. And I think that we're incredibly lucky that we've got a community that's engaged, that wants to work with us, and that's an opportunity that we should take with both hands. I don't think that we would be responsible to sign this off today at all, and for those reasons, that's why I'll be voting against the recommendations and supporting Aaron's foreshadowed motion.
Yanni?
Thank you. So I think this is really interesting because effectively what I've heard from the community is that they're not against having a cycleway through here. Actually, they actually like the idea of a cycleway, but they've got serious concerns about some aspects of the design, particularly in the central and the eastern section. And I guess for me as a councillor who's dealt with the Ferry Road MCR and saw the really good work that council did with the community, with local businesses and local experts, and got to a situation where I think by and large we got a design that was accepted and was appreciated, that culminated in the community actually organising a morning tea to say thank you to the councillors and the staff for the work that they'd done together. It really saddens me that there is so much opposition to what's being proposed in terms of this design, but it heartens me that the community have got together, I presume funded their own traffic engineers or have had people donate their time to volunteer to come up with a community concept. One of the quotes in the paper of the letter that we've received from them says that let's not have another St. Asaph Street. And, I tend to, when I look at the design that's being proposed, I tend to share sympathy with the community concept design versus the one that's in front of us. I've sent you pictures of what happens along Linwood Ave, where we've got a slip lane and a crossing across an MCR. And I can see no reason why that should be a showstopper for the community concept that's been put forward. I also think more fundamentally as a council, we do need to recognise that we have some of the highest level of dissatisfaction from our residents around agreeing that council makes decisions in the best interest of the city. In 2019, that was at 45%. The most recent survey in 2022 is at 31%. And the second measure that we have, where we have a target of 55%, is the percentage of residents who feel the public has some or a large influence on decisions that council makes. That's dropped from 34% in 2019 to 25% in 2022. And I think this decision making today is a classic example of where people have overwhelmingly expressed a view to us, but the recommendations are to continue with a design that people generally, as my understanding from the submissions, do not support. So I'm happy to support the Western approach. I think that's the one that's got the least amount of contention. I don't support the foreshadowed amendment to retain the existing 4 lanes on Harewood Road, but I do support the hearing panel considering the community concept and putting it up for consultation. I think we could get a win-win and get people on board with us around what we're trying to do to achieve our cycleways and our climate change goals.
Anyone else? Aaron? It's not. I called you, Aaron.
Okay. Yeah, so this is an interesting one because it's come out of many years of requesting, lobbying, asking from our community for a traffic light to be installed at an intersection to allow the local children to go to school. Fair call. It come from a mother of 2 young children, probably at university now. It's been so long and it's fallen on deaf ears at this council. Ask and ask again so kids can safely get to school. And we hear about safety all the time. And yes, well, I disagree with some of the points made around cycling. Cycling is not dangerous. On average, 9 people a year die in New Zealand of cycling. And back in the safe old days of the 1970s, it was 30 on average. But there was a lot more people cycling, as Jake pointed out to me. Does hard-engineered cycleways save the planet? I don't know. I haven't seen enough numbers to suggest that even the offset of that $20 million spent on Harewood Road would save the planet. If we did, say, an inspirational e-bike program with that $20 million, we could have 20,000 people inspired onto e-bikes on a bike share program across the city. That would get people on bikes. That would get 20,000 people on bikes. And if you don't use it, you lose it. It would come back to the city. $20 million would get us 2 million trees. At $10 a tree to buy and have planted, we could add 2 million trees to our city. Would that offset the climate emergency more than putting in a cycleway on Harewood Road? And to Yanni's point that the community overwhelmingly are against this. This council constantly does it to the community, not with the community, hence why our popularity rating is where it's at. And then also, the climate change budget is limited. We need to be really, really smart about how we go about saving the planet. And does $20 million on Harewood Road save the planet as much as other actions could? And let's also not forget that the world's population has a net increase, even with COVID, of 83 million people a year, all of which will have a carbon footprint. So we could be doing much about the world's population. We could be doing much about planting trees and going for transport solutions, remembering that Harewood Road will still be used by far a majority of other vehicles, which this council deliberately congests to get behaviour change, which is a climate crime in its own right. We need to get people moving as efficiently as possible. That is the best way for the planet, it is the best way for people's own lives, and is the best way for the economy. And this council lied to the people of Harewood 3 years ago in 2019 when it said that it would install the traffic lights if we went up for consultation. We went up for consultation and you don't like the answer the public gave you, so you lied to them.
Anyone else? Mike?
Thank you. Look, I think the $20 million for the cycleway will go a lot further saving the planet than the $683 million for a stadium. But look, the recent rain events have highlighted the seriousness of climate change and the need for us as cities to both actually adapt and mitigate. And cycleways are climate action, and supporting cycleways is supporting the future. The evidence has been clear about the many benefits of separated cycleways, including climate, health, safety, productivity, and more. Cycleways do not remove roads or the ability to drive. They give people choice on how they choose to travel. And it has been disappointing to see the myths and disinformation that has been put into the public domain to stir up communities by elected members. And we saw this coming through in numerous submissions. For me, though, one of the most important aspects of this in any cycleway is about creating a safer environment for people, young and old, who choose to bike. There was a theme that came through the submissions that no one cycles on Herwood Road. Bike down Herwood Road at peak time and you will know why. It is not a safe environment to bike in. And it has been a journey to get to here today. And it did not start when we announced the consultation at the end of 2020. You can go back to 2009 when local school children from Breens Intermediate approached council because they wanted improvements to Herwood Road to allow them to bike to school more safely. And it was in 2010, just before the earthquakes, that council approved reducing 4 lanes to 2 to make it safer for people to bike. However, this was not implemented because of the earthquake. And this was from a Facebook post earlier this year, not in Christchurch, but in the early hours of this morning. Our old and dear friend Tom died after injuries received on Friday from being doored. Please, please, people, be aware and do all you can to push the authorities to provide safer routes and facilities everywhere you ride. During the same time, 5 people died from cycling within a 38-day period, and yet we have to continually debate the value of separated cycles. And I'm astonished that I have to continue to listen to councillors who value a car park over the safety of a person cycling with their standard line. I'm not against cycling, but this cycleway allows people to bike in a safer environment to Papanui, Bishopdale, Herwood, the airport, which is one of the biggest employment hubs in Christchurch, Maclean's Island and more. It also allows school children to go to numerous schools without having to negotiate a busy road that many people are currently too scared to bike on. We know of the courage that school children back in 2009 who wanted a safer Herwood Road for cycling. Many of us saw the footage of the child being knocked off their bike at the roundabout. Right now, it takes courage to ride this road in its current form. Children should not have to navigate this road if they want to bike to school. Courage should not be found in our children. It should be found in us to make the right decision. Local 2022 data show that only 22% of people who bike on the roads are confident and they're not concerned about having an accident. On a cycleway, that jumps to 75%. It encourages uptake, and this is the right decision to make.
Is there anyone else before I wrap up the debate? Thank you very much. Look, I just wanted to acknowledge the community who have put a lot of effort into submitting on this process, both at the first step and the second step, and for engaging with staff in a way that has enabled staff to make significant changes to the design that we have in front of us today and that we're being asked to approve. The detailed design step will be another opportunity to look at some of those points of conflict between driveways and others, other parts, and commitments have already been made to a number of the businesses about the work that can be done to make those safe environments for their customers as well as for others. I've watched customers coming out of some of the one of the businesses in particular and observe them making that crossing and then doing a U-turn to get back on the other side. And there are dangerous manoeuvres that occur now in a very fast-moving environment. Nothing was travelling below 60k when I was sitting in one of the shops. So I'm just saying that this is a very challenging area anyway. It's a challenging environment, and their changes need to be made. This isn't a single route, it's one of the missing links in the major cycleway networks, and a number of the routes have been harder than others, and this is one of those. The benefit of this route is that it has an underpass, not just to the airport, but to Maclean's Island, and as a link to other routes, and it has 4 lanes in some parts, which actually make it easier to resolve what is a very difficult environment, particularly given the size of the the separator on the road in the middle, which only has very little room on either side of one row of trees. It's not like Linwood Ave at all. So thank you very much for the quality of the debate, but I'll now move to the voting and
Can I ask that you put them in separate sections?
No, because I'm putting the recommendation of the council and of the hearings panel, and this is the decision of the hearings panel. So I'm not going to go through section by section. It is a whole. We've already heard that. So we'll take a division on the. I'm putting them as one set of recommendations. I'm not putting them separately because you can't separate them into different channels, but I've ruled that, so we'll now move to the voting. Sorry? Yeah.
Councillor Keon?
No.
Councillor McClellan?
Yes.
Councillor McDonald?
No. Excuse me, no.
Councillor Davidson?
Aye.
Councillor Galloway?
Yes.
Councillor Scandrett?
Yes.
Councillor Chu?
No.
Councillor Coker?
Yes.
Councillor Cotter?
Aye.
Councillor Chen?
Yes.
The Mayor?
Yes.
Councillor Templeton?
For our kids, yep.
Councillor Major?
No.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes.
Councillor Johansson?
No.
Councillor Donovan?
Yes.
Councillor Goff?
No.
That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 4. And against is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Thank you. I declare that carried. Thank you very much.